Hey, it's Dario, and in this video I want to tell you the story of how I was not good enough. This is not going to be a motivational video, this is going to be a very practical video, and at the end of the video I will tell you exactly what I learned from this story and how I decided to shape my life and approach new problems that come into my life thanks to this story. So the story starts in 2014. This was the year that I had to graduate from middle school. And in Switzerland, you mainly have two options when you graduate from middle school. One option is the classical options to go to high school. The other option is to pursue an apprenticeship. If you want to go to high school, you have to pass a certain barrier, which is a 4.75 average grade out of middle school. Now, in Switzerland, we have a grading system that goes from 1, very bad, to 6, very good. 4 is the sufficient grade, which would be a D in the US. I didn't have 4.75 at all. Now, I didn't have my final grades, but I certainly knew that I didn't have 4.75. I thought I was around 4.5. I certainly didn't have the minimum to enter high school. So the only options that I had was to pursue an apprenticeship. Now, in order to pursue an apprenticeship, of course, you need a company. That's the purpose of an apprenticeship, to make you work and study at the same time. Now, since I had to choose a company, I decided to make a list of 3 companies where I wanted to work at. These were all civil engineering companies. I wanted to work in the civil engineering industry, therefore I decided to do a civil drafting apprenticeship, and so I needed a civil engineering company. So the first company doesn't even reply to me. The second company doesn't really reply to me as well. The third company replies to me and asks me to come for an interview. I was very excited. Very excited for this interview. And so the day of the interview comes and I go to the interview. I sit down and the interviewer asks me, amongst all the many questions, why do you want to work in the civil engineering industry? What it is about civil engineering that you really like? And I said exactly what I say to this day. I really love the civil engineering industry because I want to make an impact on the environment where I live in. Therefore, what better way to make an impact on those environments than directly design those environments? The guy tells me, well, that's a very good reason. That's a very good reason. I'm very impressed about it. Why don't you come for one day to check out the company, to see if you actually like the company? We will give you an internship of one day to see the company, to see the colleagues, to see how we work, and to check out if you actually like the environment of civil engineering and if you really want to work in our company. I was very excited. I went home, I told my parents, they were very excited as well with me, and I was truly happy to have this opportunity to go for one day at this internship to check out the company. So the day of the internship comes, they show me what they told me they would show me. So they show me the IT department, they show me the structural engineering department, they show me the geotechnical department, the water department, the dams department. They show me basically all the different types of sub-civil engineering industries that you can find in the more broad and general spectrum of civil engineering. Well, I was very excited. I knew that's where I wanted to work at. And so at the end of the day, I tell the interviewer, so the person that was in contact with me, I tell him, well, I really had a good time here for this day. I really like your company. And this was another confirmation that I really liked the civil engineering industry. And the guy says, all right, you know what? Why don't you go home, and when you have time and when you know your grades or the prospective grades that you're gonna have at the end of the year, you send me an email with those prospective grades, with the predicted grades that you would have, and we will see if we can accept you or not. And so I go home, and again I tell my parents about the experience that I had. It was amazing, I tell them, and they were very excited for me. They were truly happy that I had this opportunity, that I told them the interviewer was happy with me. I think that he saw the passion that I had about civil engineering, and I tell them, you know what, I really like civil engineering, I'm sure I want to work here. And so yeah, we were all very happy. So a couple of weeks come by, and we approach the end of the academic year in middle school. And so I ask for my predicted grades, and they give me my predicted grades. I send the interviewer an email. I restate my excitement that I had during the interview, and then during the internship day I tell him that I really want to work in the company, and I send him the grades that he was asking for. Now my grade was predicted 4.5. I knew that it couldn't change much from there because we didn't have any final exams from there, so the grade was pretty much set. So there was no surprise on what could have been the actual final grade at the end of the year. So I sent in that grade. After a couple of days, an email comes back. It's from the interviewer. I was really excited. I open my email box, I see the email, I see the header, and I click on the email, and it reads, "We unfortunately regret to... I was devastated. I couldn't believe it. They were so excited about me. I was so excited about it. And yet, we regret to inform you that." I started crying. I couldn't believe it. I started crying. I started to break down. I really didn't understand why. Why? What made them think that I was not a good candidate? What made them turn away from me? What did I do that was not right? And so I continue reading the email. Maybe there are some clues, who knows? So I continue reading the email. And the email says, "Your grades are not high enough for the standards of..." name of the company. I was not good enough for them. There was the realization that my grades, therefore I, was not good enough to work in that company. What can I say? I said to myself, okay, that's the only thing that I can say. Okay. I mean, they were right. My grades were not good enough. My grades were not even good enough to enter high school. So, of course they were not good enough. So what can I say? What can I say besides okay? So what were my options at this point? It was really late in the year. I didn't have the option to really look into other companies and to apply for other companies. My only option was a school that I found out was for civil drafting but didn't need a job. So the school provided the job experience themselves. There was a full-time school. Therefore, I look into this school and I see that there is a deadline to apply. Now, I think the deadline was around June, at the end of June. I know it was, regardless, later than the end of the academic year for middle school, because I know that they required a minimum grade of 4.5. Now, at this point, I didn't know what my final grade was, but I decided to apply anyways. So I wait for my final grades in order to be able to apply, because you had to provide the actual final grade. But that was my only option, so I only had to hope that my predicted grade was actually my final grade, or at least my final grade was gonna be better than my predicted grade. And so my final grade comes, it was 4.51, therefore I apply, and they asked me to come for an exam. Now this was a closed number school, and the number of maximum people that can enter in the school was 25. There were 100 applicants. So I had to be one of the 25 best applicants to enter that school. Therefore, I go, I take the exam, I come home, and I find out after a couple of days that I actually was able to enter the school. They accepted me. I was one of the 25 best. Now, I didn't know the score of my exam. I didn't know how I scored. They told me that I was not one of the worst and I was not one of the best, but I certainly knew that I at least was one of the 25 that could enter the school. Now I start the school year. This was September 2014. Around the end of the first semester, my parents get called in by the director of the course. I had 4 out of 8 subjects, 8 classes insufficient. That means under 4. Now, in order to pass the year, to pass the entire academic year, you need to have an average of 4 or above, and you cannot have any grade below 3. I had a couple of grades below 3, and also had 4 insufficient grades. I didn't even have the minimum to be able to retake the first year, because to be able to retake the first year, you cannot have more than 2 grades under 3 out of 6. And I did. Therefore, I was in danger of being expelled from the course. Now, my parents get called in, as I said, and my dad comes to the meeting with the director of the course. I was there too. We talk about my grades, of course, and we talk about the danger of being expelled, and so on and so on. Now, at the end of the meeting, my dad tells me something along these lines. I am forgetting what the director just told me. I will not tell you what to do. You decide. I knew why my grades were low. I was not studying, I was not doing the homework, I was coming late to school, I was not paying attention, I was in the back of the back row of the class. Therefore, I was not doing my job. I was not doing my job as a student. I was not studying, which was my job. After this, we go to Christmas break, and during Christmas break, I decide to change something. I decide that it was not okay for me to have those grades. It was not okay for me to continue studying this way. I really love civil engineering. I wanted to pursue this subject. I wanted to pursue this career. Therefore, I had to change something. So after the Christmas break, we start the second semester, and I start paying attention. I sit in the front row. I do the homework. I study as much as I can. I do the exams. I come not early, but I come at least on time. And so after a couple of months that we had the first exams, I start seeing my grades going up. Now, they were not good, but they were not bad as well. They were okay. They were decent grades. Now I was not in danger of being expelled anymore. Now I was at least able to retake the first year if I failed at the end of the year. But I actually was not even in danger of having to retake the year because I had an average of about 4. At this point, I started thinking back about what the company told me. Your grades are not high enough for name of the company. And it's true, my grades were not good at all. My grades were still not good. But you know what? I brought them from insufficient to sufficient. Maybe, just maybe, I can bring them from sufficient to good. Therefore, I convinced myself that I was worth another shot. Therefore, I started making a list of other potential companies where I could work at. I really wanted to work. I didn't want to continue with a full-time school. I wanted to work. So I make a list, and now not 3 companies. I make a list of about 30, I think, or more companies. I make a list, I call them, I send them an email, I send my CV, and there was another problem. I wanted to start the apprenticeship on the second year. My diploma, my civil drafting diploma that I was pursuing at the full-time school was exactly the same as the one that I would have pursued if I had a company, if I worked in a company. Therefore, there was no reason for me to retake the first year. I didn't have to, and I didn't want to. And so I wanted to start my apprenticeship on the second year. But if all the companies already had an apprentice, who would take me? No one. Many didn't reply, and many replied to me saying that, yeah, they would like to consider taking me, but they already had someone. So that was another problem. Fortunately, after a while, I found a company that was willing to call me in for an interview. I later found out that this company had a spot because their apprentice decided to resign because of personal reasons. So I go to the interview, they ask me the same usual questions, I tell them the answers, and after the interview I was really excited. A couple of days come by. I was not as excited as the first time because I was burned the first time, so I didn't want to get my hopes too high. But after a while, I receive an email and it says, "We are glad to inform you that... We are glad to inform you that." It was an email telling me that they were accepting me and that they wanted to work with me and that I could work with them in the company. It was the best thing in the world for me. I tell my parents, they were so excited for me. I was so excited. Finally, a company gave me a shot. Finally, a company believed in me. Finally, a company gave me the opportunity to work while I was studying, to work as a civil drafter while I was studying, while I was pursuing my career in civil engineering. I switch school. I go from the full-time school to the part-time school where I had the opportunity again to work while studying, and after 4 years of school I graduate. First year full-time, the rest of the 3 years part-time. I graduate and I find out I am the second best student amongst the entire civil drafting diploma, and this includes, therefore, the full-time students from the full-time school. I later became an expert in pre-construction service for this company, and I worked for this company for many years even after my graduation. And they were very happy for me because I was one of the best performing apprentices in their office. The story actually continues, and this is a part of a bigger story of how I ended up studying in London, even though I was born in Switzerland, and then ended up in the US studying for 1 year. But so the most important thing is, what did I learn from this story? How did I shape the way that I approach new problems thanks to this story, thanks to what I learned from this story? Now, the first thing that I learned from this story is that we mainly face two types of problems. One problem is the my problem. The other problem is the environmental type problem. My problem in this case was the fact that I was not good enough. I didn't have good enough grades to work in this company. That was true. I was not good enough. And entering in the full-time school really showed that I was in danger of being expelled, as I said. Therefore, it was really true that I was not at all good enough. And so the only thing that I could do was to make myself good enough, was to better understand the subject that I was studying, was to study better, was to concentrate better, was to pay more attention, was to take more seriously the school. And so I had to make myself better. This was the first type of problem, the my problem. The problem that only is due to me and no one else. The second type of problem is the environmental problem. This is the problem where I couldn't find a company for my apprenticeship because I wanted to start the apprenticeship on the second year and not on the first year. Therefore, there were not many companies that were willing to take another apprentice if they already had it. So how did I approach this problem? I approached this problem simply with the law of big numbers. I decided to contact many companies to find out if there was at least one that was able to take me. Now, you see that these two types of problems are very different type of problems. One problem is approached with a change, the first type of problem, the my problem, the me problem. The second type of problem, environmental, is faced with pursuing, doing the thing again and again and again. And you can see that if you mistake the problem and you try to approach an environmental problem with a change, you will not manage. I could have solved the problem with a change, the environmental problem with a change, For example, I could have restarted the first year, or even worse, I could have decided to study something else, to pursue another apprenticeship. And you can see how I could have destroyed my career. I wouldn't be here if I decided to approach an environmental problem with a change type solution. The same thing goes with the me problem. If I decided to take the me problem with a law of big number type of solution, therefore a pursuing solution, a do it again and again solution, I would have just did again and again and again the first year until I passed the year, which was totally not a great solution. It was totally not a good approach to the problem. Therefore, it is important to not mix these two types of problem. Now, there are some problems which are mixed. There are things that you have to change, therefore improve, and sometimes you just need to still do the thing again and again, and while you do it again and again, you need to improve. But let's try to divide as much as possible these two groups of problems, and so that's what I do, that's what I did, and that's what I still do to this day. I separate the problems, I analyze the problem, and I see if the problem is a me problem, is a problem where I have to make a change, or it's a problem where I simply need to do it again and to use the law of big numbers. The second thing that I learned was that I need to embrace the judgment of other people. Now, not all other people. If, I don't know, my uncle would have told me that I was not good enough, I couldn't care less. He is not a good subject to ask if I'm good enough to work in a civil engineering environment because he doesn't know anything about civil engineering. But a company that works in civil engineering telling me that I was not good enough was an indication that I actually was not good enough. Therefore, I need to make a change, as I said. And so that's the second thing that I learned. And so these are the two things that I learned. And especially the first thing shaped a lot the way that I approach new problems. I check if the problem is related to me or related to the people that I'm working in. Therefore, if I have to make a change among the people that I'm working with or with myself, or if it's an environmental problem, if I just need to do it again and again and again. This applies especially in project management, I believe, where, for example, you could have a team that is not performing well, and you need to understand if you actually have to make a change, or on the other hand, you may have given a proposal for 1 or 2 projects and your proposal was not accepted, and therefore the not acceptance of the proposal can be solved just by doing many proposals, and at least one of them will be accepted. But it is important to understand the type of problem, and it is important to address the type of problem with the correct way, because if you address a me problem with an iterative solution, therefore doing it again and again, it's going to be solved badly. And if you approach an environmental problem with a change, you will change without the need of changing, and you will only realize later that you didn't have to change, and that the change that you made, you are now regretting it. So this is all I had to say for this video. I hope you really liked it. I know it's something that it's not usual on this channel, but I really wanted to talk about this because, well, it shaped my life. It shaped how I approach my problems. It shaped how I approach my life in general. Therefore, I hope that you liked it. If you did, leave it a thumbs up. If you're not yet subscribed, I know more than 95% of you are not subscribed to the channels. Therefore, subscribe to the channel if you like the content, and I will see you guys in the next video.